The movie opens with chaotic scenes, a little goat peacefully grazing before an earthquake erupts, sending dust flying and the ground cracking. Strange glows emerge from the fissures as a female voice urges someone to wake up. The protagonist awakens in bed to find a girl applying cream to her leg. Impressed by her, he compliments her, and she agrees to be intimate but only briefly due to discomfort from the brightness and his sweatiness. She allows him to watch as she searches through her suitcase, but he's unsuccessful in satisfying himself. Later, lying in bed, he listens to his girlfriend express disappointment, implying the issue lies with him. Exhausted, he jokingly asks her to end his misery, but she dismisses it, reminding him of their friend's wedding day and the need for cheerfulness. Reluctantly, he agrees. Hala and Abe's wedding, November 9th. Niles dives into the pool with a cannonball, relaxing on a pizza float and chatting with a friend while sipping beer. During the ceremony, amid numerous guests, a solemn bridesmaid stands behind the bride, and Niles opens another beer. During the wedding banquet, Misty gives a speech to the newlyweds. At that moment, that same bridesmaid at the bar asks for more wine and returns to the table with a glass. As soon as Misty finishes her speech, she asks the bride's older sister, Sarah, to speak. As soon as her name is mentioned, all the guests immediately pay attention to her. The flustered bridesmaid Sarah doesn't want to speak, as no one told her she needed to prepare a speech, but her parents start persuading her. Niles notices her unease and decides to intervene. Misty is strongly against it, but he takes the microphone from her and gives a very moving speech about how people aren't alone, even if they come into the world that way. He tells the guests that Tala became a bone marrow donor for her younger brother and thus saved him. He continues his speech, looking at Sarah, and she feels like his words are addressed to her. She doesn't understand what's happening. After his performance, he invites the guests to dance. During the dancing, a guest tries to flirt with Sarah, but she turns him down. Niles notices her demeanor and attempts to cheer her up with a dance, but she declines, prompting him to blow her an air kiss before stepping away. As Niles stands by the table, he catches a whiff of a fragrance and Sarah approaches him to inquire about it. He identifies it as Orchid Explosion by Fornell, a scent she wears, though she admits she's not fond of it but uses it because Tala gave it to her. Their conversation is momentarily interrupted by a waitress delivering forgotten drinks. As they sip their drinks and chat, an elderly guest compliments Niles on his heartfelt speech, leading Sarah to question if he truly believes what he said. Niles candidly admits that he doesn't, remarking on the pervasive loneliness he perceives in everyone. Noticing some rustling nearby, Niles suggests they find a more secluded spot, but Sarah is taken aback by his abruptness. Their conversation is interrupted by a guest emerging from the bushes, relieving Niles momentarily. Sarah, however, persists with questions about his girlfriend and the implications of their interaction. Niles reassures her that his girlfriend won't mind. Meanwhile, Misty and Trevor engage in intimacy in the restroom, observed discreetly by Niles and Sarah through the window. Sarah expresses outrage at Misty's behavior, questioning why Niles doesn't intervene. In a moment of vulnerability, Sarah admits to her own struggles with promiscuity and alcohol, finding solace in their shared experiences amidst Misty's cries. Deciding to be alone, Niles and Sarah lie on the rocks, sharing a kiss. As Sarah attempts to undress Niles, he struggles, eventually removing his clothes to reveal polka-dotted underwear beneath his swim trunks, amusing Sarah. Suddenly, an arrow strikes Niles' shoulder. Screaming in fear and pain, Niles shouts that he knew it. He smelled him. A man with a bow and arrows emerges a little way off. Pulling the arrow from his shoulder, Niles starts running, with the man with the bow chasing after him, past the astonished girl. Pausing briefly to catch his breath, the guy immediately gets hit by an arrow in the upper part of his leg. With a cry that Roy is just sick, he yanks out the arrow and continues running. Hiding behind one of the huge rocks, he tries not to breathe, and the man loses him. With words that running is useless and he won't be able to hide from him anyway, the strange man enters a cave. Emerging from behind the rock, the guy also tries to enter the cave, but from pain, he falls and continues crawling towards the red glow. Behind him, Sarah appears, and he earnestly begs her not to follow him and not to enter the cave. Getting closer to the red glow, he gets sucked into it. A female voice says wake up, and the guy opens his eyes. He wakes up in bed, sees the girl, and compliments her. She, understanding his intentions, agrees to make love with him, but only quickly. Hala and Abe's wedding, November 9th. Niles cannonballs into the pool. Lying on a pizza float in the pool, the guy drinks beer and chats with his friend. Suddenly, an enraged Sarah storms into the pool area. She demands explanations and starts throwing beer cans at him. Trying to escape her wrath, he dives into the pool, with the cans falling on top of him. Realizing she can't get to him, the girl jumps into the water and demands answers. She followed him and saw how a strange man shot him in the leg, how he crawled into the cave and disappeared. Ignoring his warnings, she also approached the glow, and it sucked her in. Opening her eyes in the morning, she found herself in her bed, and on her phone, she saw that it was November 9th again. Rushing to the window, she saw preparations for the wedding. Not understanding what was happening, she went downstairs. Her family acted as if nothing had happened, as if it were just another day. She tried to explain to them that this day had already happened, and she remembered it, but her relatives concluded that Sarah was on drugs. At that moment, she saw Niles through the window and decided to get all the answers from him. Running out to the poolside, Sarah unleashed all her anger on the guy, throwing beer cans at him, and then diving into the pool after him. Seeing her behavior, Tala rushes out onto the street but trips and falls face down. The bride has a hysterical fit. She knocked out 2 front teeth. Her mom and bridesmaid try to calm her down. Her dad makes phone calls trying to solve the problem because the wedding is in 6 hours. The older sister is simply panicked. Niles lies on a lounger by the pool and drinks beer. A bewildered and confused Sarah approaches him. He explains to her that they're stuck in a time loop, and now it will always be today. She's horrified and asks him to take her to that cave. The guy says she shouldn't go there, but she still sets out to find it. Failing to find her, the exhausted girl lies down on the rocks. The guy finds her like this and tells her that to find the cave, they need to wait and points to a rock. Suddenly, the ground starts shaking, dust flies, small rocks fall, and the entrance to the cave opens. Sarah immediately starts running towards it, but Niles stops her. He says there are no answers in there. If she goes in, the day will just reset. There's another option, not to sleep, but as soon as she falls asleep, this day will start over, and she'll wake up in her bed again. Ignoring him further, she enters the cave. Waking up in the morning, the girl is horrified to find herself in her bed. Grabbing her phone and keys, she hastily leaves the room. A female voice says wake up, and the guy opens his eyes. He sighs heavily and covers his head with a blanket. Tala and Abe's wedding, November 9th. Sarah drives away from the hotel. Niles first cannonballs into the pool, then lies on the pizza float. Stopping at a gas station, the girl refuels the car. The parents don't understand where their eldest daughter went, not even leaving a note. The guy intervenes in their conversation, suggesting that she simply got scared of the family, or the wedding, or melanoma, or something else, and assures them that she'll come back. Sarah drives in the car. It's already night. At the wedding banquet, Misty gives a speech, and the guy watches her standing near the bar. The girl drives to Texas, desperately forbidding herself to sleep, but as soon as she sits on the couch, she falls asleep anyway. Opening her eyes in the morning, Sarah realizes that this day has started over again. Screaming into her pillow, she heads to Niles. Ignoring Misty's outrage completely, she wakes the guy up and declares her inability to remain there any longer. Observing this scene, the guy's friend concludes that he's cheating on her. However, he dismisses it with laughter and accuses her of infidelity instead. They drive in the car, and en route, the guy expresses his ignorance about the situation, having long abandoned attempts to understand it. He suggests they endure it since they seemingly cannot die, at least not yet. Sarah doubts his words and resolves to escape their fate. The guy releases his seatbelt to meet instant death without suffering. Sarah follows suit. The car hurtles towards the truck, the inevitable impact. And again, morning starts the same for both of them. They sit in the bar and drink. The girl says she drove all the way home to Austin and woke up again in the hotel. The guy says it's a rule. Once he didn't sleep on amphetamines and made it to Equatorial Guinea, but as soon as he got off the plane, he started to feel very sleepy, and eventually he blacked out, only to wake up again in the hotel. Here they see a woman playing darts, calling her Darla. Niles suggests they play, although she doesn't understand who he is or where he knows her from. After hitting the bullseye twice, suddenly Sarah remembers the strange man with the bow, and she misses for the 3rd time. The guy explains that it was Roy. He was a guest at the wedding on the groom's father's side. That's all he knows about him. However, the girl doesn't understand why he would want to kill Niles, so the guy tells her the story. Once he hung out with Roy, it was a long time ago, and he didn't know many people back then. The guy was standing near the bar, flirting with the bartender when Roy approached them. He bought them drinks, and they struck up a conversation. Roy said that Trevor had drugs in his pocket, so Niles approached him and simply pulled out a packet of powder from Trevor's pocket. They locked themselves in the bathroom, consumed them, and had a great time. While lying somewhere in the desert on the rocks, the man said it was his best night ever, and he wanted to stay there forever. And the guy decides to show him the cave. Roy goes in, and the guy realizes it was a mistake. When the man realized what had happened, he wasn't pleased at all, but fortunately, he woke up in Irvine and comes back every few days or weeks. He comes up with the most elaborate tortures and murders to get revenge on the guy, shooting him with a bow, trying electricity, setting the pool on fire. After that, Niles swore never to bring anyone there again. Hearing his story, Sarah says that they need to talk to the man. They can't just run away from him forever. But he laughs and says you can, and goes out on the street. A burrito van has arrived. Sitting by the van, they continue their conversation. The girl asks him how many people he has slept with, and he names a few: Daisy the bartender, Darla, Jerry, and her father, but he joked about the last one. He's also curious about her intimate life, but she doesn't want to talk about it and asks him back, was there anything between them? The guy denies everything. Suddenly, she realizes that it's all about karma. To break out of this loop, you have to perform some act of sacrifice, so to speak, to earn forgiveness. At Tala and Abe's wedding ceremony, Sarah stands nearby. Trevor announces that it's time to bring the wedding vows, but he's interrupted by the older sister. She takes the microphone from him and goes to the guests but decides not to say anything. Returning the microphone, the girl hugs her sister, whispers something in her ear, and just leaves. A small earthquake begins, and Tala cries after what she heard. Sarah plays pool, and Niles comes to her asking what she told her sister, but she doesn't want to answer. In the morning, the guy, as usual, wakes up in his bed. There's a knock on the door, and Sarah walks in. Misty is upset and starts accusing the guy of cheating. Knowing everything she's going to say, he repeats her words back to her. They go to a stranger's house with a pool, whose owners are away. Then they shoot at the shooting range. Every day they start in their own beds and entertain themselves as best they can. They drive cars, swim in the pool, hijack a plane and crash it, dance in a bar and cause a little trouble there. One day, they decide to get tattoos of each other. They cause a commotion at a wedding by setting off a bomb in the sky and starting a fight. They celebrate at the bar for the 1,000th anniversary and then head to the desert with a tent. Sitting by the campfire next to the tent, the girl shares that she's been married for 2 years but it didn't work out, and she doesn't want to go through it all again. She's curious about what Niles did and who he was before he got stuck in the loop, but he doesn't remember. He also doesn't want to answer any of her questions about himself, even though she can tell he's hiding something. Suddenly, they see dinosaurs approaching. Getting ready to sleep in the tent, the girl suggests they finally drop the subject they were interrupted on last time, and he agrees. In the morning, a happy Sarah wakes up, as usual in her bed, with the usual sounds of running water. Once the water stops, a man comes out of the bath and asks her to leave before anyone sees them. It's Abe, her younger sister's fiancé. Feeling off, the girl drives in the car with Niles. He tries to get her out of her thoughts, saying how good last night was, but she's very distant, though she says she had fun too. During the conversation, she notices a cop car tailing them. Suddenly speeding up, she provokes the cop to pull them over. The guy doesn't understand what's going on and why she's behaving this way, and he's afraid Roy might be in that car. But Sarah stops the car and says it's time for him to deal with that man. Getting out of the car, screaming for help and claiming he wants to kill her, the girl runs to the police car. At the cop's demand, the guy gets out of the car, and it turns out to be Roy. With a gun aimed at him, the cop is about to shoot, but before he can do anything, the girl hits him with the car. Then a real officer arrives. Sarah provokes him to shock her, dodges it, but the shocker hits the guy. Sitting in handcuffs on the side of the road, Niles tries to reach out to the girl, telling her she can't behave like this. She can't scare people or hurt them, because it's all destroying both of them. They start arguing, and in a fit of anger, he throws at her that they've had intimacy between them many times. Sarah can't believe her ears that the guy deceived her. Not wanting to continue this day, she throws herself under the car. In the morning, the girl didn't come to wake Niles up, so he sets out to find her himself. But no one has seen her, and she's not in her room either. He tries to find her, but with each passing day, he falls deeper into despair. One day, he was in a room with other guys, lying on the bed, offered drugs, but he refused, burying his face in the pillow. And from one of the pillows, he heard a familiar smell. Asking whose room it was, the guy found out that Abe had stayed here, and he understood everything. Bursting into the banquet, he accuses the groom in front of all the guests of cheating on Talia with her sister. A fight breaks out. New day, wedding banquet. The host invites the bride's parents to perform in front of the guests. They sing a song that Pia sang to Howard at their wedding. Niles sits in the room with Jerry and tells him that he misses Sarah very much, surprising him because he didn't even know they were acquainted. He confesses to him that he is in love with her. In the morning, the guy wakes up in his bed as usual, next to Misty. Distraught, he gets in the car and drives off. Roy is cooking at home in his kitchen. Suddenly, he hears Niles screaming. Startled, he goes to open the doors. Meanwhile, the guy outside shouts for him to kill him and stop tormenting him. Going outside and calming the neighbors a bit, Roy leads him into the house. But then his wife appears, telling her that he's an old friend. Roy takes the guy to the backyard. In the backyard, the man's children, twins, a girl and a boy, are playing. Roy says he's quite satisfied with his life and doesn't understand why the guy is here. Niles replies that he doesn't know, and they haven't seen each other in a long time. Then the man shares that after their last meeting, he ended up in the ICU, and the nurses wouldn't let him sleep. He says he used to hate the guy for never seeing his kids grow up, for not walking his daughter down the aisle. But that hospital visit opened his eyes. He understood how hard it was for the guy and forgave him. Roy learns about Sarah and says they need to stick together. There's nothing worse than being stuck in this loop alone. The man tells the guy it's time for him to leave, and they're better off not seeing each other again. Then Niles asks for one last favor, for him to be killed. He doesn't want to stand in traffic again. And Roy agrees. He takes the guy far away from everyone else and shoots him with a bow. Not wanting to continue this day, Sarah throws herself under the car. Opening her eyes in the morning, she goes to shower with Abe and expresses to him that they were wrong and shouldn't have acted that way, and they deserve any punishment. Leaving the hotel, the girl sits in a cafe and starts studying quantum physics. Every day, she leaves the hotel, comes to the cafe, and listens to various lectures. She conducts experiments and measurements in the cave. One day, she attaches a lot of explosives to a goat, leads it into the cave, and detonates it. In the morning, Niles wakes up to Sarah saying wake up. The girl sits on the edge of the bed. At that moment, Misty indignantly asks to let her go. Ignoring her, they continue to communicate further. The guy apologizes to the older sister for deceiving her, and then Sarah announces that she found a way out. They need to blow themselves up in the cave, and it will throw them out of this loop, but she doesn't know where, but it's worth a try. The guy is not thrilled with this idea, but the girl tries to convince him. She conducted such an experiment with the goat and it disappeared. Niles confesses his love to her and asks her to reconsider the decision. Just stay here with him and not change anything. But she doesn't believe him and doesn't want to stay either, because life in this loop is meaningless. He replies that life there will be difficult, they will have to solve a lot of problems, and he also knows about her and Abe. For the last time, she asks if he is ready to go with her, but he refuses. He wants Sarah to stay with him. Embracing the guy, the girl says goodbye and leaves. Entering the bathroom, he meets Misty. She overheard their entire conversation and is puzzled by what she heard. Not wanting to explain anything, he says that he knows she doesn't like him and they need to break up. Talia and Abe's wedding ceremony. Sarah stands behind her younger sister and smiles. The guests dance and have fun. The girl drinks wine with a happy smile. Misty invites her to speak to the guests. This time, she doesn't refuse. The girl talks about how dear Talia is to her, how her altruism and belief in the best inspire admiration in her, and she will always find something to learn from her younger sister. Casting a stern glance at Abe, she asks him not to miss his chance. Niles sits at the bar, drinking, when Darla approaches him and he starts pouring his heart out to her. But after her words, he realizes, the only one he needs is Sarah. Provoking a small fight in the bar with the bartender, he secretly takes the keys to his pickup truck and drives to the girl. Sarah, loaded with explosives, heads towards the cave. Suddenly, the wheel on the pickup truck blows out. He gets out of the car and starts running. Reaching the man they learned to shoot from, he asks for a ride. But the man doesn't know Niles, so the guy on the go comes up with a story, pretending he's his son. The girl stands by the entrance to the cave, collecting her thoughts. At that moment, the guy arrives on a motorcycle. He tries to explain himself, but she interrupts him and doesn't want to listen anymore. However, she still decides to give him a chance to say one thing. Niles tells her that he's no longer afraid. He realized that life is meant to be shared with someone, and he doesn't want her to die there. He understands that she's a beautiful person, that he hasn't met anyone better than her, although it was almost impossible to do so stuck in a time loop. He's not sure blowing themselves up is a good idea, but it's better to do it together, because he can't live in this loop without her. Shoulder to shoulder, holding hands, they enter the cave, and she responds that she loves him too. Embracing and merging into a kiss, Sarah presses the button. Explosion. The guy and the girl lie in the pool on pizza-shaped floats. He mentions that he has a dog and it's time to pick her up. During their conversation, the villa owners arrive. Turns out, they are indeed returning on the 10th. At the wedding banquet, Roy approaches Niles, saying he got a message from his girlfriend yesterday. He thinks her idea is crazy but truly believes it will work. However, the guy doesn't understand what he's talking about and doesn't know Roy at all. Realizing that Sarah's theory did work after all, the man becomes ecstatic. Would you like to get stuck in such a time loop? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Till next time.